through yet. All right, you're not gonna read, that's okay.
Would you like to come sit here and share with me the big?
That's-
Well, here we are again with Game of Thrones, the adult Sunday school class, where we look at the history of Israel through the four lenses. The prophetic throne, the royal throne, the priestly throne, and the eternal throne. And it's all, you know, this wonderful thing we call the Bible has this all interwoven together, and we try to pick it apart, and sometimes we can, sometimes we can't, and that's where we're at. So today we're you know, the exile has ended or is beginning to end. There's Cyrus is sending people back, and when Cyrus ends, Darius will take over and continue that process. So the first group of Jews have left the southern part of the kingdom, and they're on their way back, and their sole purpose is to rebuild the temple. That's their sole purpose. And so today we're in Ezra 3. We start in Ezra 3, where they are beginning the rebuild. So let me get over to.
So, you know, they didn't all come back in one weekend. It was over a period of what, 25 years or something?
Right, about 20 years, somewhere in there, 21 years.
Yeah. It wasn't one
They didn't
weekend.
come back all at once. That's why Ezra and Nehemiah play a little bit different.
Right.
So I hope that those people online can see this. If you can't, I will check it out later and redo it if I have to. So I know what to do here. Let's go to here and let's share. That way I make sure. Share screen. That one. Share. Okay, now I know they're seeing it. Okay, so beginning to rebuild the temple. Bye-bye. Somebody want to read 1 through 3?
Now when the 7th month came, and the sons of Israel were in the cities, the people gathered together as one man to Jerusalem. Then Jeshua, the son of Jozadak, and his brothers, the priests, and Zerubbabel, son of Shealtiel, and his brothers, arose and built the altar of the God of Israel to offer burnt offerings on it, as it is written in the law of Moses, the man of God. So they set up the altar on its foundation, for they were terrified because of the peoples of the lands, and they offered burnt offerings on it to the Lord, burnt offerings morning and evening.
Okay, so it's been 5 months. Remember when they first came, the priests, the Levites, everybody associated with the temple and their families came, and they were to settle in towns around there. So they're setting up their homes to make sure they've got someplace to go to at night. Then now they're beginning, 5 months later, they're beginning to rebuild. They're all assembling back in Jerusalem to hear the plans for what's going to happen and where their roles are. And the first thing they're going to do is they're going to build the altar. Why would they want to build the altar?
Well, to have someplace to go to pray.
Well, to sacrifice,
Yeah.
but they've got to purify everything as it happens now. So, and it says written in the law of Moses. So they're going back to the Levitical law. They're following what they know of Levitical law in order to make sure that every instrument they use, every sacrifice they give, everything is glorifying God. And so that's why the altar is the first thing to be built. And it's interesting. Verse 3 starts out, talks about they're afraid of the people around them. That comes into play shortly. Okay. No, it's other people who have moved into the lands around there. It's like starting all over again. We had Joshua who conquered all these lands. David continued that. Saul, David continued all that. But so they're kind of starting all over. People have moved into the lands because there was nobody there.
And when God gave the people their lands, I don't know who kept track of what God gave who.
Well,
So they're probably going back to claiming their lands again, and these people living there ain't buying that.
right.
That's where we are.
Keep in mind, Remember, Jeremiah sold
That's right.
or purchased land.
That's
So,
right.
Okay. So on to verse 4 through 6.
Then in accordance with what is written, they celebrated the Feast of Tabernacles with the required number of burnt offerings prescribed for each day. After that, they presented the regular burnt offerings, the new moon, sacrifices and sacrifices for all the appointed sacred feasts of the Lord, as well as those brought as free will offerings to the Lord. On the first day of the 7th month, they began to offer burnt offerings to the Lord through the foundation of the Lord's temple had not yet been laid.
Okay.
Mine says Feast of Booths.
I was going to get to that.
Oh.
Anybody remember the other mention of Feast of Booths or Festival of Booths?
That's tabernacle.
Festival of Tabernacles. There's another story in the Gospels. That's over the Festival of Booths is when Jesus was transfigured.
Oh.
So,
Mhm.
but in here, it just what they're doing is they're reestablishing their calendar. And so so the first thing that comes up for them on their calendar is this Feast of Tabernacles. Then they've got this new moon sacrifice they've got to do. And then the first of the month comes around. Well, like I said, they're following Levitical law. They're trying to get it as close to what they remember as they can. Because they've been out of it for a long time. They're probably going to miss some things. Okay. But yeah, on the first day of the 7th month. So now it's already been a month and here we are. So in just 2 verses, we've gone, or 3 verses, we've gone a full month. But they had not yet laid the foundation for the temple yet. Okay, I'll read verse 7 here. Then they gave money to the masons and carpenters and gave food and drink and olive oil to the people of Sidon and Tyre so that they would bring cedar logs by sea from Lebanon to Joppa, as authorized by Cyrus, king of Persia. Where'd they get money from? And food and drink and olive oil?
Yeah.
Oh, we learned that last week. Cyrus told his people, hey, give them stuff, help them out. That's, we're not going to be like these other people. We want to help these people out. So, right, they gave them gold and silver. Remember, we heard all those things. They gave them gold and silver and food and drink and all this other stuff. So, and now they're setting, and of course, Cyrus authorized. Cyrus is in charge of Sidon and Tyre. So, okay, the Persians are in charge, or they control all that land. So they've authorized the use of these cedar logs. Of course, it's the cedars of Lebanon. It's the same setup as before. They're going to be floated down the river there, or by the sea. Sorry. I'll read this one too. In the 2nd month of the 2nd year. So now we've gone 5 months in just a blank space. 2nd month of the 2nd year after their arrival at the house of God in Jerusalem, Zerubbabel, son of Shealtiel, Joshua, son of Jozadak, and the rest of the people, the priests and the Levites and all who had returned from captivity to Jerusalem, began the work. They appointed Levites 20 years old and older to supervise the building of the house of the Lord. Now, when it says to supervise this, that doesn't mean that you've got 500,000 supervisors and no people working. No, just that they're going to be working on
You
this.
mean like the road crews now?
So they
7 now.
have conscripted every male 20 years and older to work on the temple.
I got 7 people looking and 1 in the hole.
And he's down there looking up.
Right.
That's where the highway workers. come.
And they're all complaining about him. Yeah, they all have a different way that they want him to do it. Okay, so verses 9 through 10, if someone wants to take that.
Joshua and his sons and his brothers of Cabin.
Just a second.
Cadmiel.
Just a
I
second.
can't see through my. Joshua and his sons and brothers of Cadmiel and his sons, the descendants of Holokiah, and the sons of Herdan and their sons and brothers, all Levites, joined together in supervising those working on the house of the Lord. When the builders laid the foundation of the temple of the Lord, the priests in their vestments and their trumpets, and the Levites, the son of Ashim, with cymbals took their places to praise the Lord as described by David, king of Israel.
Okay, so now they're going back to a time that has been sung about in the Psalms they've been singing about how David celebrated the building of the temple, or the reestablishment of the temple, when he brought the Ark of the Covenant into the tabernacle. They're celebrating these stories now. And so the priests get decked out in all those priestly garments. Remember, they were giving back all the priestly garments.
Mhm.
So they're decked out in these priestly vestments. They've got their trumpets, and everybody is just making noise and celebrating, and make a joyful noise, Paul.
Right.
Let me
Shout, sing. They're all the same words. Okay. You don't have to be in tune.
Is that in between the lines here?
Okay, 11 and 12.
I'll take it.
Mhm.
With praise and thanksgiving, they sang to the Lord. He is good. His love to Israel endures forever. And all the people gave a great shout of praise to the Lord, because the foundation of the house of the Lord was laid. But many of the older priests and Levites and family heads who had seen the former temple wept aloud when they saw the foundation of this temple being laid, while many others shouted for joy. No one could distinguish the sound of the shouts of joy from the sound of weeping, because the people made so much noise, and the sound was heard far and away.
Okay.
All
He
right.
went on through 13. That's okay. Yeah, so you've got people who were taken in exile as children who saw the original temple, who are now seeing the foundation there. So you've got tears of joy, but from different angles. You've got those who are remembering how things were and celebrating that. You've got people who are celebrating because we're starting something new. Remember I mentioned the transfiguration thing. Here we are a few months later. Things are starting to look up. They are renewing their covenant with God, even though they don't know it yet.
Right.
Once they get all this reestablished, that covenant will be taken care of. But
So the people wept aloud. That was a joyful tear
mhm.
because they were happy to see it, not that they were disappointed.
That's what I was.
Correct. Yes, it was in joy. And verse 13, as we get to here, it says that no one could distinguish the shouts of celebration from the cries of celebration, from the tears of celebration. So
I thought it didn't pass inspection.
I did too. I did too.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Engineer.
okay. And the sound was heard far away. Huh. Y'all remember when I said that verse 3 would come back to maybe haunt them a little bit?
Mhm.
There were people that living in the lands that they were in fear of. I wonder if this sound made it that far. Ezra 4. We're not going to be in Ezra 4 very long, so we're not reading the whole thing, I don't think so. Verse 1 and 2.
Now, when the enemies of Judah and Benjamin heard that the people of the exile were building a temple to the Lord God of Israel, they approached Zerubbabel and the heads of fathers' households and said to them, "Let us build with you, for we, like you, seek your God. And we have been sacrificing to him since the days of Esarhaddon, king of Assyria, who brought us up here."
Aha. So think long and hard about this. The enemies of Judah and Benjamin. So people who hate the Israelites to start with have come up to Zerubbabel, who is, he's the priest in charge of all this, and says, "Hey, we want to help you build because we've been sacrificing to God since the time of Esarhaddon, the king of Assyria."
Mhm.
Now, remember what I said a long time ago, how Assyria and Babylon differed in how they distributed and conquered people.
Right, right,
Assyria would take one group of people and move them somewhere else.
Yeah.
right.
And that's what they did with the with the Jews. They moved them to Nineveh. They moved all these different towns. They moved other people
Yeah,
into
back
here.
here. Yeah.
Okay. And Assyria was having nothing of people sacrificing to God. They weren't allowing that. So this already has something wrong. You can already think something's wrong just from reading that. 3 through 5.
But Zerubbabel, Joshua, and the rest of the heads of the family of the Israel answered, "You have no part with us in building a temple to our God. We alone will build it for the Lord, the God of Israel, as King Cyrus, the king of Peru, commanded us." Then the people around them set up to discourage the people of Judah and made them afraid to go on building. They hired counselors to work against them and frustrate their plans during the entire reign of the Cyrus, king of Persia, and down the reign of Darius, king of Persia.
Okay.
Mhm.
So
You don't let us play that, you don't let us play at your party, we're gonna destroy your party.
the Jews have a specific set of things that have to happen in order to be a part of the Jewish community. Circumcision was one, that was the big thing that established the covenant. But they're saying, look, this is our thing. We've got to do this. We don't want your help. We don't need your help. This is something we have to do. And so they set about, well, we'll get them. Initially their plan was to sabotage the building.
Yeah.
Right, is what it sounds like anyway. Now, since they can't do that hands-on, they're bribing the officials of Persia, all those underlings, to hey, let's send the cedars of Lebanon somewhere else, that are supposed to go there, or maybe there's not enough or something like that. So they're setting out to sabotage all this
Right.
from other means now. We're going to jump back to Daniel. Daniel is not written in chronological order.
In the third year of
Daniel
the.
10.
Daniel 10, verses 1. Yeah, 1 through 3.
In the third year of Cyrus, king of Persia, the revelation was given to Daniel, who was called Belteshazzar. Its message was true and it concerned a great war. The understanding of the message came to him in a vision. At that time, I, Daniel, mourned for 3 weeks. I ate no choice food, no meat or wine touched my lips. But I used my lotions. I used my lotions at all until the 3rd weeks were over.
Okay.
I used no
No
lotions
lotions.
at all. Okay.
So Daniel was not part of that group that came back from exile yet. His job is still there in Babylon. And he gets this vision about a great war, and the vision upset him so much that for 3 weeks he ate no choice food, ate no meat, drank no wine. He used nothing to protect his skin from the harsh desert.
What great war are we talking about?
Well, we're going to get there. You're jumping ahead, Paul.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out what it would be.
Go back to sleep.
So now we get, okay, so we've heard what happened to Daniel, what his reaction was. Now we're hearing what the vision was. So it's kind of like if you're watching this on TV, you get this dream sequence, man, you won't believe what happened to me. What happened to me upset me so much that for 3 weeks I couldn't do this. And then it starts to, the TV starts to get hazy and it goes back and you're seeing what's in his head now. So 4 through 6.
All right. On the 24th day of the 1st month, as I was standing on the bank of the great river, the Tigris, I looked up, and there before me was a man dressed in linen with a belt of the finest gold around his waist. His body was like chrysolite, his face like lightning, his eyes like flaming torches, his arms and legs like the gleam of burnished bronze, and his voice like the sound of a multitude.
Okay, now this is not a statue like he had seen before. He's actually seeing a man. Do y'all remember ever reading anything like this before or anywhere else? We haven't gotten to it in our study, but
Revelation?
Revelation, John sees a
Lot of
very
strange
similar,
things.
John sees a very similar image, and it turns out in John's revelation to be Jesus.
Hmm.
So 7 through.
Well, so is this what, like a forecast, if you will, of Jesus?
We're getting to the apocalyptic text of Daniel. And so what I believe is happening is Daniel and John are seeing the same vision from different viewpoints. You know, they're standing off at tangents just a little bit,
Mhm.
but they're seeing the same vision. Those are these moments where God's non-linear timeline, an eternal timeline touches down to humanity. Well, since God does not exist in time as we know it,
Mhm.
it happens at multiple times during earthly time.
Okay.
So there, I think they're seeing the same vision.
But not at the same time.
Obviously not. John was written
Yeah,
thousands of
yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Or, well, let's say about 1,000 years later.
Okay.
No, not even that. About 500, 600 years. Yeah, between 500 and 600 years later. Okay, 7 through 10.
Now I, Daniel, alone saw the vision, while the men who were with me did not see the vision. Nevertheless, a great dread fell on them, and they ran away to hide themselves. So I was left alone and saw this great vision, yet no strength was left in me, for my natural color turned to a deathly pallor, and I retained no strength. But I heard the sound of his words, and as soon as I heard the sound of his words, I fell into a deep sleep on my face, with my face to the ground. And then behold, a hand touched me and set me trembling on my hands and knees.
Okay.
Oh,
Does this sound familiar at all?
yeah.
This is very reminiscent of what happened to Paul on the road to Damascus.
Okay.
In that difference, they heard the voice, but they couldn't see what Paul saw.
Right.
In this case, the guys don't see or hear anything. They just see Daniel's reaction.
Mhm.
And it's such that it scares them and they go run off.
It's also clear at the same time, situation happened in the long pole of Paradise Lost. Was written, what, 17 something, 16, 1700, something like that.
There was a funny commercial. Well, some of these I watched some of these failed army, they call them failed armies, but some of these failed videos, and they do gags and pranks and things. Well, one of the gags was this guy would take off running around this busy street corner. And everybody would look at him and he would just be aghast, just scared to death, running just as fast as he could. And they don't know what's going on until they turn the corner and there's a guy dressed like a T-Rex outfit or something. Okay.
Like what?
T-Rex.
In his dinosaur outfit. Okay. And then they're frightful like crazy. And of course, then the people who don't see that, they've already seen one person run past them. They've seen another one go nuts at what they're seeing. They're all afraid. Well, they never saw anything. They're just seeing the reaction of these two people. So
Huh.
kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
I like Daniel better.
11 and 12.
He who said, Daniel, you are highly, it's just, you see, I can't even get my words out today. Consider carefully the words I am about to speak to you about, and stand up, for I have now been sent to you. And when he said this to me, I stood up trembling. Then he continued, do not be afraid, Daniel, since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to them.
Okay. So this man of burnished gold and light face, face like lightning, starts to talk to him. And, Daniel, you're highly esteemed. We've heard that phrase before. That's the almost the same exact phrase that Gabriel used when meeting Mary.
Right.
Do not be afraid, Daniel. Most angels say that when they make their appearance. So there is an argument here that this is an angel. I don't think so. Okay, but you have to make your own judgment there. I think this is a pre-incarnated Jesus appearing in a vision. So. 13 through 15.
For the prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me for 21 days. Then Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me because I was detained there with the king of Persia. Now I have come to explain to you what will happen to you and your people in the future. For the vision concerns a time yet to come. When he was saying this to me, I bowed with my face toward the ground and was speechless.
Okay, and this is again an argument for an angel.
Michael, yeah.
For another angel, because Michael, an angel we already know, is coming to help this other person. Some interesting comparisons. The Prince of Persian Kingdom. We've already heard about the king of Persia. You know, and both Cyrus and Darius were mentioned as king. Why use prince? Well, that's because this ain't the same as the king. This, I believe, is satanic. It is evil. It's demonic. That's why they use the word prince of the Persian kingdom. Resisted me 21 days. If this is Jesus talking, this is my argument for Jesus. We know that in the New Testament or in the Gospels, we hear about Jesus going into the desert. Of course, it says for 40 days. Remember what we said about the number 40. It's not necessarily an exact time. It just means a long time. So when you hear 40 days, when you hear 40 years, that means a lot of years. When you hear 40 days, that means a lot of days. I believe that this could be Jesus relating his time in the desert to Daniel, giving a specific time, 21 days.
I'm sorry, Michael, you lost me.
I know this. I'm interjecting my own articulable theology here. So again, that's what makes disciples so
Are
great.
you
is
saying
'cause we can
then
interpret.
Prince, and it's just at 13, but the Prince of the Persian kingdom, are you saying that that's Satan?
I believe it's Satan.
But Cyrus and Darius are the king.
Correct.
They're Satan then.
But remember, we're hearing it. We're in a vision. We're in a vision at this point. And as I said before, I think that there is a meeting of an eternal timeline and a human timeline. And that human timeline changes. The eternal timeline never does. And so Jesus, I strongly believe that this is Jesus talking to Daniel, and Jesus is relating what is happening to him or what has happened to him in the desert, that time of testing that he had in the desert.
Well, he's always been there, so why not?
Now, when it says, then Michael, one of the chief princes, again, we know Michael's an angel, so it makes sense if they're calling him a chief prince, it would make sense if we know he's an angel that prince might mean angel here. So, or some kind of spirit. So Michael came to help me. Where I start to make my argument is that, remember, I believe that Jesus was fully divine and fully human. Jesus could, as he was tempted, could have called 10,000 angels to come help him. But he didn't. He used the word of God, scripture, in order to combat Satan. But it does say at the end of that time of trial that angels attended him.
End of the 40 days, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah,
Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me.
yeah.
So I believe that could have been that we're seeing an Old Testament retelling of a story that has not happened in human history yet. Okay.
Yeah,
And now I've come to explain to you what will happen to your people in the future. For this vision concerns a time yet to come.
Yeah.
So this is a prophetic vision.
Yeah.
He's being told something that's going to happen in the future.
uh,
And it scared him so much he bowed his face to the ground and couldn't talk. Man, sometimes I wish some of my coworkers would do that. Okay, 16 through 18.
Then one who looked like a man touched my lips, and I opened my mouth and began to speak. I said to the one standing before me, I am overcome with anguish because of the vision, my Lord, and I am helpless. Now, how can I, your servant, talk with you, my Lord? My strength is gone, and I can hardly breathe. Again, the one who looked like a man touched me and gave me strength.
Okay. Now, all of a sudden we've got a shift. It starts out then one who looked like a man touched my lips. This is somebody different. This, I believe, is an angel. Okay. Touched his lips. We get a similar vision of this in the other prophets when they have trouble speaking and the angel comes and touches their lips with a hot coal. I believe this also is kind of a foretelling of the healings that will happen in the Gospels by just touching people. They're healed and strengthened. And the one who looked like a man touched me and gave me strength.
because Lord in my
Mhm.
Bible here is not capitalized.
It's not capitalized.
So it's not God.
Correct. It doesn't. It's implying that there's a greater power there, but it is not
It's
implying
not-
God Almighty.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'm still confused, but that's all right.
It's okay. Well, if you ever go to the front of your Bible, in the little details and notes and stuff, it'll tell you what the names of God,
Oh,
what
yeah.
those things are.
Mhm.
If it says God, big G, little o, little d, it means El. God is El,
Mhm.
and then gods, or Elohim,
Mhm.
which are mainly used in Genesis. If it says Lord with capital, all capital letters, that is God, that's Yahweh.
Mhm.
If it says Lord with a capital L and lowercase ORD, it means just not God Almighty, but God in itself. I don't want to say Yahweh, but like I said, each Bible kind of does that differently, but they're all fairly similar. So if you ever get the chance to go and read that, that will explain why trying to convert that into English, they had to do it that way.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, now we're talking here, the apocalypse. This is what we're talking about here, right?
Yeah, remember this vision is about a war that's coming and it's coming in the future.
Okay, the war between good and evil.
Well, we don't know that. We just know it's a great war. We haven't learned anything about the war yet.
We've had a lot of great wars.
Yeah, exactly.
Aren't they
So the
all that
one,
way?
yeah, so the one who looked like a man touched him and gave him strength. So 19 and 20.
And he said, O man of high esteem, do not be afraid. Peace be with you. Take courage and be courageous. Now, as soon as he had spoken to me, I received strength and said, may my Lord speak, for you have strengthened me. And then he said, do you understand why I came to you? But I shall now return to fight against the prince of Persia. So I'm going forth, and behold, the prince of Greece is about to come.
Okay. So we've got a spiritual battle going on. And this particular person now, whether this is a continuation of the Jesus that I initially told you about, or whether it's an angel, a different person that I tell you, I think it is. That's above my pay grade. It's just what I think. He says, look, this is the story, but I've got to tell you quick because I've got work to do. I've got to go fight the Prince of Persia. And when I go, the Prince of Greece is going to come.
Who's that? Alexander?
We'll have to see, won't we?
The reason I asked is because Alexander fought against Darius.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's not. And then verse 21 through verse 1 of chapter 11.
But first I will tell you what is written in the book of truth. No one supports me against them except Michael, your prince. And in the first year of Darius the Mede, I took my stand to support and protect him.
Okay. So this is that one who looks like a man, talking about a book of truth.
Excuse me a minute, what verse did you read?
Or what was up there?
That was chapter 10, verse 21
And then,
into
21,
11,
1.
verse 1.
oh, okay, because I was gonna say, mine just stopped here at 11, I didn't know it was 1.
So does Daniel ever make it back to Judah?
No.
That's what I think.
Daniel dies in
Yeah,
exile.
yeah, he didn't ever make it back.
He never sees the temple. At least he does not see the temple on earth.
Right, right,
We trust that Daniel will see the eternal temple.
right, right.
And so that is where we're going to end today. I know I keep saying, wait. It gets better. Today was a lot of theology and a lot of, I'm gearing you up for what's about to happen. Okay.
We got the foundation done. Let them play this thing.
So next week, we're going to go into Daniel's, the rest of Daniel 11 and 12, and we're going to see this terrifying vision. By the way, Paul, it is Alexander.
It is Alexander. Did you hear that?
What's that?
It is Alexander.
Yeah, it is
Yeah,
Alexander,
it
yeah.
will be Alexander. So next week, it's going to be exciting. Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you.
And I hope that y'all get to have a day of your choosing. I don't want to say, I hope you get a day of rest, because you may decide you don't want to rest. Or you get a day of going out to eat, and that may not be what you want to do. But
Out to the kitchen.
I hope you get a day of doing what you want to do. So,
So thank you, Michael.
thank you. Let me
I
go
have
ahead
a
and
question
close
for
this
you,
out. Yes.
All right, we're talking here the apocalypse, right? And that's where the good and the bad are separated.
Well, it depends. The apocalypse is the end of time.
Okay.
Okay. So
What happens to the people who are there?
the people who are where?
In the world at the time, at the end of time?
We're gonna, at some point, we're gonna get to a video series, like 4 to 6 weeks or something. That's the plan anyway. And that'll actually come sooner than I think. Because we're not that far from finished.
Oh,
Well, when I say that, unless y'all want to go on into the Gospels or read those intertestamental things, but I want to get more into the eternal throne, because that's where this is all leading up to.
okay.
Okay, now here's my
But-
question.
But my thoughts on how the apocalypse happens, there's 2 things happening side by side. One, you've got a covenant with Israel that God never broke. That covenant still exists. And so they are judged based on their covenant with God. The new covenant with everyone else, those who live under grace. And I say that because we live under grace because Jesus has come.
Mhm.
That new covenant is judged parallel. And so when we get to things about judgment, the great white throne judgment or things like that, we're talking about a lot of different things. I believe that the parable of the sheep and the goats talks specifically about judgment of the Jews, that covenant there. But other judgments talk about that judgment under grace.
Okay, now my question comes up. You got here the apocalypse and the big battle that's going to happen.
Right, we call it the battle of
Some
Armageddon.
people are going to be the losers, and some people are going to be the winners.
Well, we already know who the winner is.
Pardon?
For that battle, we already know who the winner is.
All right. Who's the winner?
God.
God. But what about the people? And the reason I ask it is because I keep thinking in my mind as you're doing this of the horrendous, beautiful painting in the Sistine Chapel of the Last Judgment.
Mhm.
And nowhere in that painting can I find a battle of separating the good and the bad people, except that they are those who are bound to hell, those who can't get across the river Styx, and those who are going to heaven.
Yeah,
And in the apocalypse, something's got to happen to the good and the bad.
that video series that I plan on giving is going to explain 4 major thoughts on how, on what that means.
Oh, good.
And then I can go over some smaller thoughts, but these are the 4 main ones. So, we hear the term millennial. And I don't mean age group, I'm talking.
No, yeah, I know what you mean, yeah.
Millennialism,
Yeah.
whether there's going to be an actual 1,000-year reign
Mhm.
without demonic activity at all, okay?
Yeah.
Or there's also amillennialism.
Yeah,
Which people, those are people that don't believe that there will be a 1,000-year reign. There are non-tribulation plus, versus
Right.
those who believe that there will be a tribulation, and all the little steps in there. Some people think that it's going to get worse and worse and worse until God finally steps in. Others think that it's going to, that God's going to step in at some point and then things will slowly, gradually get better until we reach that eternal thing. It doesn't look like that is going to happen to me, but that is one thought.
Mhm.
And then the other one, which has never made sense to me, why people could believe that, but they do. Those are the preterists, and preterism dictates that all of this has already happened.
oh,
Whoa,
Yeah. So,
whoa, I don't think that,
where'd they come from?
well, and they have their arguments. They have their arguments that that all of that is talked about in the New Testament was written about because it had already happened.
Oh, okay. Well,
Okay.
I
That
guess it
John-
had to come
that-
from somewhere,
And
huh?
that John's vision specifically talks about Rome and nothing else.
yeah, because Joshua needed about Rome, so, okay, I can see that.
And now that the Roman Empire does not exist.
Yeah, so the
anymore,
Roman Empire,
therefore-
when it ended, that was the
That was
end,
it.
and all, that's when it all happened, it's been overdone with, and that's what you're saying, what they're saying, I should say.
And can you believe there are people who call themselves Christian
So
atheists?
when
Yeah.
you totals up them all 6 weeks, then it can.
They
start
believe,
one
they
check
believe,
to them
they
all at
believe
once.
in
Cause I don't know
the,
whether anybody contribute
um,
online or anything like that, so.
the moral code of that Christianity brings, that Jesus existed, but was not Messiah.
Oh,
And that we basically dictate based on that moral code how the world goes.
well, that is
God almighty,
strange.
So it's very interesting. I'm gonna go ahead and close this out. Thank y'all for joining us online. We'll see y'all the next time we meet.